Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Rope of Hope. I am your host, Kimberly Plesia. Today, we are being joined by Erica, who is going to share her story with cancer. Now, my guests are so brave in coming in and sharing their stories and just putting themselves in this vulnerable position. So let's definitely show Erica some love. And Erica, before we get started, why don't you tell everybody just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me on, Kimberly. I appreciate the opportunity to share my story. I am I'm really looking forward to our short conversation. Um, and thanks for everybody who's joining in. I'm Erika Diaz-Castro. I'm a Christian life coach for women. I've been um, saved, or what Christians call ourselves, saved, since 2012. For a really long time, I battled like depression and addiction and just a lot of like unhealthy things. And ultimately, cancer like slapped me in the face in 2016. And it was really through this experience of fighting cancer in several different ways that I've come to know my purpose and kind of heed that calling to serve women as a life coach. So I'm grateful I get to do that. I'm also a mom, a wife, and I work in corporate America as well. So, I do a lot of the things that many of us in the US of A do: grind, show up daily, and, just do my best. So, in most ways, I'm like everybody else.
So, can I ask what kind of cancer do you have?
Yeah, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a rare form of lymphoma. Most times when someone receives a lymphoma diagnosis, it'll be titled non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and then whatever specificity after that. But with Hodgkin's, it's a form of lymphoma, or like a blood cancer, that really shows up more commonly in young people.
Okay. And how did they catch it? How did they find it?
hmm So I have a nervous tick. Whenever I'm really nervous, I either rub my collarbone or I pick at my lip like that. So you kind of just see me like with my hand here. And I was out to watch a football game with a friend. And in the middle of her, in the middle of the football game, she started telling me about how she was really depressed and like really heavy stuff. Um, and I always thank God that she like decided to open up about that at that time, because it started to stress me out. I was like trying to focus on the football game and like be there for my friend. So I end up rubbing my collarbone because I started to get really anxious, and I felt a lump in my throat. It didn't hurt. I had no other symptoms, and I've taken some classes. I'm interested very naturally in like medicine, and I'm really in tune with my body. I was a personal trainer for many years, and I also competed in bodybuilding. So I was just kind of always paying attention to my body, and I knew that that lump wasn't there before that. So it was pretty small, but it was there, and I immediately the next day, it was a Sunday after church, we had gone the next day on Monday, um, I found a primary care physician. I was new to the Bay Area, so I didn't even have a doctor. I found a doctor, and I went in to see her, and she was really, really aggressive in terms of like ordering all the tests and getting all the blood work done. And it probably took about almost 3 months to be formally diagnosed with Hodgkin's.
And when they gave you that diagnosis, what did you go through at that point?
hmm Do you mean like in the moment or like following that?
In the moment.
hmm So the interesting thing about receiving a diagnosis is that you're typically like with the doctor who's diagnosing you, sitting down, having that conversation. I went in for a post-op appointment because I had the lymph node removed, and um, my doctor wanted to look at the stitches and make sure everything was healing well. And when I walked in, he was the person who came and got me. Normally, it's like the nurse who puts you in a room. He
Hmm.
came out to the waiting room, was like, "Oh, you're here, good," and like grabbed me. I went on my lunch break because I was expecting him to look at my stitches and let me go. And he sat me down and he said, "Have you talked to your doctor?" And I said, "No." And he's like, "Okay, sit down." And he told me, and he's like, the test came back and it's confirmed to be Hodgkin's lymphoma. I knew what Hodgkin's lymphoma was because two of my cousins have had it. So there's obviously a genetic predisposition there. But I knew that two of my cousins had had it, and they were both really young when they were diagnosed. One was 9 and one was 15.
Mm.
So at the time I was diagnosed, I was 28. And he let me know what it was. And he was like, "Stay here. I'm going to reach her on her cell phone because she's not in office." And he stepped out of the room and he gave me an opportunity to be by myself. So I remember very distinctly feeling really at peace and feeling like I wasn't alone. It's funny to say that out loud because like I was physically alone, but I do recall feeling a presence in the room and I felt really at peace. I wasn't worried. I texted my husband nonchalantly, um, "It's cancer." And I like looking back at it, I'm like, what a terrible thing to text him. It probably gave him a heart attack at the time. But I just didn't feel worried. I felt like everything was going to be okay. And at that time, I my mindset was, now I know what it is. The next step is to figure out what to do about it. And it was it was a Tuesday. It was December 22nd that happened in 2016. My surgeon got the doctor on the phone. She was on jury duty. She couldn't talk for long. She gave me like a 2-minute synopsis of what the next few months would be like. And that's when I felt unsettled. I was like, something about this doesn't feel right. Just rushing into treatment, they scheduled me for another surgery, and then they did a bunch of scheduling that was what the Western medicine world would call proactive, but in my opinion, felt very rushed. And so I obliged because I was just trying to get back to work and like go back to work. And it was maybe a couple days later that I started to slow down and consider options outside of traditional like chemo and radiation.
So, what did your treatment look like?
So I opted out of chemo and radiation initially. My agreement with my doctor was that if it spread, it was staged one at the time, and my agreement was that if it spread, I would concede to traditional treatment, which according to my general oncologist at the time, was chemo followed by radiation or 6 months of chemo straight.
Mm.
So it was like 3 months chemo, 3 months radiation, or 6 months of chemo. Um, I did research on my own and found a lot of different protocols that Europeans use, primarily Germans. Germans actually probably share the most research on lymphoma. Um, I'm a research nerd just like naturally since I was a kid. So I went to PubMed, I pulled all this data, I made a binder for my oncologist, I ordered books for her, and I was like, this is what I'm reading in case you want to read it. This is why I'm not going to do chemo right now. This is what I'm going to try instead. And, I documented everything pretty thoroughly so that she knew what I was doing, what supplements I was on, what alternative methods I was considering, and what I wasn't doing. And I kept it at bay for 4 years. Um, it actually started to get smaller. The lymph nodes that were left over went from two to one. And then the last lymph node was taking its time, but it was decreasing in brightness and in size when I was getting scanned. So it wasn't until 2020 that I started to feel the lymph node get bigger. And around that time, it was a really stressful time, not just because of COVID. I had experienced a personal threat of like against my safety at the time. So
Mm.
I was going through some really concerning, processes. Like the police were involved, the DA. It's still something that's like pending.
Mm.
And it was really, really stressful. So what I kept in check for those years was stress. I was like coping with stress in really healthy, or what I thought were healthy ways. I still had some like struggles with addiction. But by and large, I was keeping things, kind of steady until I felt that the lymph node grow in 2020. But unfortunately, I couldn't do anything about it because, fortunately, I was blessed with a second pregnancy, which was unexpected. So,
Congratulations.
thank you. That was, yeah, he's 5 months already. So, that was June of 2020. And then I felt some stuff kind of going on at the end of the year. And a lot of different things happened. I had to deliver him early, and then learned that the cancer did spread to stage 3. So I started chemo in March of this year, and that's why I have no
Well,
hair.
you look beautiful.
Thank you.
Bald is your thing.
Hi, thanks. These are
I
actually temporary tattoo eyebrows too.
really,
Yeah, they look real, right?
they really do. Your eyebrows look a lot better than mine. I gotta say.
Thank you.
So you've delivered this beautiful baby boy,
Yeah.
and then you find out it's stage 3.
Hmm.
What did that do to you mentally?
Whenever I talk to anybody about it, they're kind of like side eyeing me. So I just want to preface this by saying I've gotten, I've already gotten the looks and I've gotten the questions, but I was still at peace about it. I felt really good. When I started to experience the like things going on in my body in December, I was 7 months pregnant. And my OBGYN, I was seeing a high risk OBGYN because of the cancer diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
And she's incredible. She is like a little old lady who's like dwindling down her practice. So she had time to do above and beyond. And she did. She, I told her, like, I think something's going on. I try to reach out to my general oncologist. She won't see me because I'm pregnant. And she was like, I'll call her and I'll talk to her. Like, it'll be fine, you know? And my general oncologist wouldn't even talk to her. She's like, I won't even take a call from this girl until she delivers the baby because I'm not gonna deal with that, you know? And she just didn't feel comfortable doing that. So
Mm-hmm.
my OBGYN was like, listen, I I think you should transfer your care here. I my treatment for both pregnancies, I have 2 kids, was through a research institution, like a big medical facility. And long story short, she was like, I'll make the calls and I'll get your appointments booked for you. You just focus on being pregnant. And I was like, all right. So she did. She reached out to everybody and anybody. And I mean, when I tell you, I was getting calls from so many different departments, they would tell me themselves, like, your name is probably the most popular name at the hospital right now. Like, everyone is pulling strings to get you in as a new patient, skip lines, get seen, do all the things. And my doctor was the one facilitating everything. And
Nice.
to the point where the lymphoma specialist I was supposed to be seeing was out of the country for several weeks. And so, I didn't have anybody who could prescribe um, any treatment protocols, who could order tests, things like that. And my OBGYN, she was like, don't worry about it. I have a friend in the lymphoma center and I'm going to ask him for a favor. And this dude who never saw me, I don't even know his name. He ordered every test. He did everything possible to get me screened and ready for the lymphoma specialist when she did come back from her out of country travels. And when I came back, they collaborated on a plan. My case was presented to the hospital like every week because it was so complex. And ultimately the decision was made to do like a high steroid protocol, which was effective. I delivered early and then I started chemo a month later. So I had a lot of time to prepare, a lot of time in my mind. And then I had also taken the time to kind of call an all hands meeting with our support system, our friends and family. And I got everybody on board. I'm really organized. And that's one of the things that I do with my clients. So I just, kind of practice what I preach. And I got everybody spreadsheets signed up, everybody in whatever way they could help. And I had a plan going into chemo and we have a plan after chemo. So I had a lot of time to consider the route of chemo and I tried everything that I could my way. And then when it came time to do what I needed to do, everything worked out in a way that allowed us to function as optimally and as supported as possible.
So have you done just the straight chemo treatment, or did you do the chemo with radiation?
So, seeing a lymphoma specialist was probably the smartest thing I could have ever done, because I learned that those specialists don't like the radiation route because it's not even as effective as they think for the Hodgkin's lymphoma. Um,
Okay.
so they were like, we're not going to subject you to that. And after 2 cycles of the regimen that I have been on, they dropped one of the chemo agents because it's known to cause lung damage long term.
Mm.
So as soon as I went into remission, they dropped it, and I don't have to, worry about that as much as maybe
Nice.
other people do.
So with being in remission, you don't have to do chemo right now, or are
I
you still on chemo?
I'm still on chemo. The protocol was 6 months of chemo, and that was because of the size of the lymph node. It ended up going from like a little under 2 centimeters to 8 centimeters.
Mm.
And it's gone now. It doesn't even show up on scans. So I've been in remission since May, and I just have to finish out my chemo, which will be done next month. And then I'll have some
Yay.
more scans, and then I can go on with my life.
So what's the first thing you're going to do when you're done with chemo?
My daughter starts preschool the week after, so I look forward to like walking her into the door and kind of starting that new chapter with her.
Oh,
Yeah. I get chemo on Fridays and she starts on Monday, so I plan to go to church on Sunday and just like worship my heart out and then start a new week with her.
and with being on chemo, have you been able to do any of those things?
I didn't for a while. I did start going back to church in person in June, but right now we're recording in July, and the number of COVID cases in vaccinated people has gone up. So my doctor wants me to be really cautious and kind of lay low for a little bit. So I'm laying low and just doing church online again. But I do have like my Bible study partner who I send daily notes to. Like we kind of brainstorm Bible study together, and have a good number of like people who I connect with on our in our faith. and I get to walk through life with them and be supported in that way, even if it is virtually.
You know what? The internet has become an amazing thing over the past year.
It has.
It has become our lifeblood in so many ways
Yeah,
and really has helped keep us connected
it
during
has.
the time that we couldn't.
Yep. Yeah. It's been a really important tool for this season in my life, especially because I was kind of like self-quarantining again. Um, I didn't leave my house really for several months, especially because I have a newborn and I wasn't sleeping a lot, so my immune system wasn't really recovering well. But being able to be connected to people who can pray with me, and my friend who's committed to doing Bible study with me since I like shared all of these updates in January. She literally texted me and was like, "I will be that friend who checks on you every day." And I was like, "Can we do Bible study every day? Like I'd rather do that." And she was like, "Absolutely." So that's what we've done. And I I do want to just share that I wouldn't have this peace if I didn't have a relationship with the Lord. And when 2020 hit, I had been clean for like 5 months. So October 2019, I got clean of everything I've ever been addicted to. And I'm I'm certain that God waited until after that to kind of allow this journey to unfold in the way that it has, because if it were the year before, I might have fallen into like substances again to deal with a lot of this stuff. And instead, I turned to prayer and to studying the Bible and to just like seeking God on things that I used to seek drugs for, you know?
Totally get it. Totally get it. Well, I want to congratulate you on your sobriety recovery.
Thank
I
you.
want to congratulate you on the new little one.
Thank you.
I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I want to congratulate you on on being in remission.
Thank
I
you.
mean, you've got a lot of big good things right there all in one.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
Throughout all of it, all this, this bundle of everything.
Mm.
What was the scariest part or the hardest part?
Um, I wouldn't say I was scared. I would say the hardest was probably that it was really challenging that my little guy wasn't a good sleeper because it was putting a lot of stress on my body.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One thing I did, and I had time to research so that I could do it properly, was implement fasting for like the sake of protecting my body against the effects of chemo. And I've been successful so far. I have one round left of the six, and I've done this fasting protocol every time I have chemo. Um, and so I haven't experienced a lot of the side effects that people get. But my immune system wasn't able to recover even with these like medicines they give. And that was probably the hardest part because I knew that not sleeping was affecting me in ways that were um, pretty important to recovery. And he only just started sleeping 3 weeks ago.
Oh
And
my.
I know. And already my immune system has seen the benefits. Like the difference in my blood work from the last time that he didn't sleep through the night to the time that he did sleep through the night, my immune system numbers tripled. So, so I would say without any doubt, I would say him not sleeping was the hardest because I could feel the difference, and I could feel that it was just putting bigger strain, like more strain on my body, you
Mhm.
know.
Best moment.
Best moment. Um, it's like a two-part moment. So before I started chemo, I didn't watch like people's vlogs or anything about what chemo was like for them. I don't like to do stuff like that. I didn't do that in pregnancy. I just don't prepare for things in that way.
Mhm.
I like turn to the word, you know, to the Bible. And so I watched one girl's vlog, like 2 episodes, and they were like 10-minute episodes. And I remember her saying that she went through 12 months of chemo. And I thought, at the time, I didn't know how long I had to go through chemo. They were saying maybe 3, maybe 6 months. I said, Lord, how long am I going to have to go through chemo before I'm good? And immediately the number 2 came to mind. So I was like, I kind of like tucked it away in my heart. I like journaled about it. And then I had my first visit with my doctor for chemo that Friday. She kind of walks me through the process. She's like, we expect you to be okay in 2 months, but we're still going to continue chemo for 6 months. And I said, okay, no worries. So I did 2 months of chemo and got a scan. And then the next visit I had, I walked, I knew that the scan was like, it showed improvements. I read the report, but I didn't really understand it. And when I walked in, she's like, "Hey, that was a good scan, you know?" And I remember just saying like, "Yeah, it seems like it's getting better." And she said to me, "Yeah, you're in remission." And I didn't know that until that moment. And it was exactly 2 months, almost to the day, that I had
Wow.
started chemo. And I I just like sat there in shock. Um, and I like cried like kind of silently. Like I didn't make a noise. I just like had a couple tears come down my face. And I remember thinking like God is so faithful. You know, he made a promise and he kept it. And I couldn't even speak. I was just so overjoyed, you know. And it's very seldomly that I have moments where I'm speechless, and that was one of them. So sweetest moment was not so much that I was in remission, because the kind of cancer I was diagnosed with is curable. It's like one of the few cancers that doctors will say is curable. But it was more so about the fact that God spoke to me and that he came through on that promise.
Well, I have one final question for you,
Sure.
and it has nothing to do with your story.
Okay.
Through your life, what is the most inspirational thing that somebody has said to you?
Through my life. Hmm. I think inspiration overlaps with encouragement. And one of the things that has been just reiterated throughout my life is that God uses even the broken. And for a time, I was depressed and, addicted to things and people. And I felt like I had no purpose. I attempted suicide when I was a teenager. I considered suicide again as an adult. And I remember those times when I felt like I was useless. And that every almost without fail, someone will remind me God uses even the broken. And I think that's like the biggest lesson and also source of encouragement that I carry with me, because there are a ton of times when I feel like I have absolutely no use. And I remember like it's it's when I feel like this that God can like use me, you know. And if he could use me, like addicted to drugs and alcohol and like, you know, people and just like avoiding and numbing and a whole hot mess, like if I could be used to encourage someone, um, then even the person who thinks that they're not worth a damn could be used too.
That's beautiful. Erika, I want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and being very vulnerable. I applaud you for your courage, your stance through this. I again want to congratulate you on the whole bundle that this has been for you because you've had some huge celebrations through this.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And so, congratulations again.
Thank you.
And again, thank you so much for coming on my show and sharing.
Thank you. All the glory to God. I appreciate him using you to help me share this testimony.
Well, you guys, that is it for today's episode. I am going to be on tomorrow with an amazing doctor who is, or actually, no, that's Saturday. What? I don't even know what today is.
Today's Friday,
Today's
girl.
Friday, so it is tomorrow, Saturday. A doctor who actually was a born right after Chernobyl and dealt with all of that. So he is going to be sharing his experiences with that and what he's doing now, which is an amazing story. So you're definitely going to want to tune in for that again. You guys, if you have enjoyed this episode and enjoy this podcast, please consider becoming a listener supporter. As a supporter, you will have access to supporter only content. You will know about guests long before their episode date. So you'll know at least a month in advance of who is coming on. And you're going to be able to be a part of something bigger than yourself. So buymeacoffee.com/this fat girl life. I live for my coffee, y'all. You know this. If you know me, you know coffee is my survival juice. You guys, I will see you tomorrow. Bye, everybody.
Bye.